everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Courtney Ryan, and today we are reacting to a chart that is the least attractive hobbies according to women. Now, I saw this getting a ton of attention from both men and women over on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and I knew I had to react to it here on YouTube. I have to start by saying this chart just feels so unproductive, but I think we can turn this into a productive conversation, so let's break down some of my thoughts on this topic from a woman's perspective. I've got to say the obvious, does it really matter if your hobby is attractive? A hobby, by definition, is an activity that a person does in their free time for pleasure or recreation, and that's usually based on their interests. Your hobby isn't for your friend, or for your mom, or for women. It's for you. It should be something that brings you joy. I think simply by having interest in hobbies, it automatically makes you more interesting and more attractive. Some people will be into what you're into and some people won't be. But I don't think that's what we should be basing our interests on. I would never, ever sit here and tell you to only have a hobby because women find it attractive. I would also never tell you to stop a hobby that genuinely brings you joy because women don't find it attractive. Now, what I can do is offer you a woman's perspective on why certain hobbies are more attractive than others. Before we get into looking at the chart, I also want to use this as an opportunity to say that you don't have to share every single hobby or interest with your significant other. Sure, it's absolutely nice to have overlap and things that you enjoy doing together, but they don't have to like or participate in every single hobby you do and vice versa. I actually think it's healthy to have things you enjoy doing independently. So I actually reacted to a list a while ago from a dating site who surveyed women on the most attractive hobbies that they see on a man's profile. So when they're scrolling through, they see the hobbies and what are the ones that they find the most attractive. And I sort of had the same message to you guys in that video. While I can tell you from a woman's perspective why some hobbies are generally more attractive than others, or why most women would perceive some things to be more attractive than other things, that doesn't mean you should only do something for that reason specifically. Actually, I would highly encourage you not to do that because then you're just not you. But the hobbies that are generally seen as more attractive often involve some sort of skill or physical activity like cooking, traveling, playing an instrument, photography, exercise, things along those lines. So with all that being said, taking a look at this list here. Least attractive hobbies for men according to women. I've got to be honest with you, I don't know where this came from. There's like a little TikTok username down in the corner, but I don't know the women that were surveyed. But all I know, this has been a hot topic over on X, and I think TikTok as well. Playing video games gets a 90 unattractive score. So it's the highest one out of all these. But taking a look at this list, I must say, I don't really agree with most of these. I certainly don't think that video games are the least attractive thing on this list, if we're comparing it to the other things. Again, especially with the options on here. But I'd say video games are probably one of the most common hobbies among men, and clearly the one that women, most women, or whoever was surveyed in this, are finding the least attractive. I'm going to go through the rest of the list before I get back to the video game point because I have more to say about that and I want to offer a different perspective. But it's just crazy to me, and I'm going to share some other tweets that I saw and just a conversation about video games in general. We're going to have a bigger conversation about that later in the video. Collecting figurines. I mean, I could see how you might not want them to take up your entire house. But collectibles, I think, are a great hobby because they often end up being worth a lot of money. Sports memorabilia, Beanie Babies, watches. My husband's very into watches. They end up being worth a lot of money. And it can actually sometimes be an investment. When I think of what a woman is considering unattractive in terms of collecting figurines, I'm thinking of like figurines from movies or video games, and a guy just has like an entire room of figurines. Now, I don't personally have a negative view of collecting figurines because my dad makes sculptures. He makes figurines out of clay. They are incredible. Oh my goodness, this man is so talented. It makes me sick. When I think about a woman finding that unattractive, I just think about my dad and how that's such a huge part of like his talent and who he is, and he's an artist, and it would be sad for me to think that he wouldn't do something that he was so good at and so interested in because women think it's unattractive. My mom doesn't think it's unattractive. I don't think it's unattractive. So who cares? There's gonna be a woman out there who doesn't find your hobby to be a turnoff. Collecting figurines, I mean, whatever, who cares? Magic tricks, I don't know anyone personally who does magic tricks, but I have to think that's a nice little quality to have at parties. Like, hey, I got a magic trick. How many people can just say they know how to do magic tricks? Now, if a guy's walking around with a magic jacket and a rabbit in his hat, maybe, some women might think that's a little bit weird, but I'm sure there are women out there who are into that. I don't know. Just because I'm not into it doesn't mean another woman isn't. Online trolling. You're telling me that playing video games is worse than online trolling? Is online trolling really a hobby? If online trolling is a hobby, then so is me sitting on my couch. I'm wondering if online trolling is maybe referring to like having a meme account or making memes. But if online trolling is referring to people who are mean and nasty and hateful in comment sections and just say awful things, and I just cannot fathom how that is somehow not as bad as playing video games. Online trolling is a little strange to me. Gambling? I'm so sorry, but if you would rather be with a gambler than a man who plays video games, I'm not sure that your opinion is relevant. Gambling is right up there with substance abuse. It can become a very addictive, dangerous, detrimental thing. I mean, a man could gamble all your money away. And maybe I've just watched too many crime shows where it all starts with gambling. A guy gets a gambling addiction, he loses all his money, and he kills his wife for the insurance. Just watch one of these this week. It's going to be a no from me. It's going to be a strong no from me. And like I said, in what world is playing video games worse than gambling? Be so for real. That is the worst one by far for me. Gambling and online trolling. Is online trolling really a hobby? I'm having an issue with that. Okay. Building model trains. That just reminds me of like a cute old man building model trains. Maybe that's not the most attractive thing, right? But at least he's doing something. Wouldn't you rather a guy build a model train than go out and get drunk and be a degenerate? I would. Taxidermy. The fact that this is one of the lower ones on the list leads me to believe that whoever was surveyed maybe didn't know what taxidermy was. Like perhaps they heard taxidermy and thought, taxidermy, taxes, accounting, finances. That's not so bad. Personally, I am not into the taxidermy world. There was a girl on The Bachelor at one point who did taxidermy, and I've got to say that's the only woman I've ever seen be into taxidermy. I know that there's more, but I've never seen one personally. The only experience I have with taxidermy is the girl from The Bachelor who was into it, and then Jeffrey Dahmer. So I can't say I have a positive view of it, but if you're into that, you're into that. And I'm sure in certain places, maybe someone's really into hunting and likes to preserve the natural beauty of an animal. Would I want my husband doing that? Not necessarily, but I'm sure other women out there wouldn't want their husband to collect watches or to be really into watches. So to each their own, right? But again, I have a feeling here that not everyone knew what that meant. Yeah. Comic book collecting. I mean, that can be reduced down to like a cardboard box. That doesn't really take up much space, and those can be worth a lot of money as well, and that's like a cool thing to have. I personally love going antique shopping. I love looking at old things, so like a vintage comic book is super neat to me. So I don't personally think that's unattractive. Again, these things on this list are just, a lot of them are very nerdy or geeky. When you think of comic books or guys who are into comic books, maybe you think of a nerd. Some women are not into nerds. I personally am. So I don't mind it. And bird watching. That is so wholesome. Bird watching, my best friend's husband is really into birds and he's a great guy. I have a bird feeder that I purposely placed directly outside of my living room window so that I can bird watch. I also have this Merlin ID app on my phone where if you hear a bird call, you can record it and it will tell you what kind of bird it is and like what kind of call they're doing. I find it fascinating. But I personally, and this is really what I want you guys to understand. Every woman is different. And what a woman is into in a man is usually based on what she is into herself. So I myself have a lot of what people might consider nerdy or boring interests. I like to sit in my living room and watch birds. I like to hang out with my cat. I like to read, I like to cook, I like to bake, I like to garden. I like to do a lot of things that many people would consider to be boring. But some of you will watch this and think, oh, I'm into a lot of those things too. That's attractive to me. And those are your people. It is okay if your hobby is not attractive to most women. I want to talk about video games because that was the strongest reaction that I was seeing from both men and women. And the things that I saw from women said, this is 100% true. Men playing video games is peak unattractive, beyond red flag, like deal breaker zone. It's weird that so many dudes don't get this. And then I wanted to highlight 2 responses to that. One that said, women don't dislike video games because they're geeky. We dislike them because they're antisocial and consumption-based. Like if a woman said TikTok or online shopping was her hobby. Hobbies should involve actually doing, making, or learning something. I can kind of agree with what she's saying in a way, but I think a lot of hobbies out there are consumption-based. You know, if a woman really likes watching reality TV, isn't that consumption-based? And a lot of women do that. And if you had, a great woman, she was well-rounded, a wonderful significant other, she was a great girlfriend, great wife, she had, other interests, but she also liked to watch reality TV sometimes, is that a deal breaker? An interest doesn't always necessarily paint the full picture of who a person is. I have a lot of hobbies that I enjoy that involve doing, learning, making. But sometimes I have to be honest and say, I like to sit on my couch and rot with my cat and watch Emily in Paris. Is that a deal breaker? Maybe for some of you it is. And in that case, good thing you're not married to me. But my husband doesn't care. He has things that he enjoys doing on his own too. So I do think the hobbies that women would consider to be more attractive do usually involve doing, making, or learning something. But not every hobby needs to fall under those categories. A hobby can also just be something that you enjoy. Again, it's your free time. You don't need to spend every ounce of your free time doing something productive. Like, it's okay to relax. It's okay to escape for a second. When you read a fiction book, say for example, is that really the most productive? Sure, I might be enhancing my vocabulary, but overall, am I really learning or making something? Not really, I'm just enjoying a book. I don't really get anything after I read the book. The same way if you're watching TV. You're not really necessarily always getting anything for that. You're just enjoying your free time. If you work a lot and a hobby is sort of a little escape for you, it's okay if you have a little escape as long as you don't turn your escape into your reality. Or, prioritize that escape and that free time over your responsibilities and your priorities. I think most women dislike video games because it doesn't involve them. And if a woman said, scrolling on TikTok was her hobby or online shopping was her hobby, would that be a very attractive thing to you guys? Probably not, but she's going to probably do it anyway. And there are men who don't care because I'm sure there's more to her than just those things. And then this tweet says, gamers, please ignore her. I personally would rather him be in the privacy of his own home, doing whatever he needs to decompress from a hard day at work, than be out at a bar getting drunk any day of the week. And if that includes gaming, so be it. The point of a hobby is to enjoy yourself. Now, if you're a guy out there who is single and you really want to be in a relationship and you are spending every ounce of your free time playing video games, maybe you're alone and isolated and playing video games for hours upon hours a week, but you want to be in a relationship, well, in that case, I would maybe encourage you to play video games less and do other things that are going to be more in line with your goals. I think it's important to take a step back and sort of evaluate your specific situation and be honest with yourself. Maybe you're playing too many video games and you're not living a lifestyle that's going to be conducive to you meeting a partner or reaching your goals elsewhere. And in that case, I would maybe say try some other hobbies as well that fall more in line with what your goals are. Maybe going outside, getting some sunshine, meeting some friends, being social, having other hobbies that improve those things about your life rather than putting all your eggs in one basket and only playing video games all the time, 24/7. Or if you're in a place where, as I mentioned before, you're ignoring your family, you're not spending time with your kids, you're not emotionally connecting with your wife, you are not getting your priorities and your responsibilities done to play your video games, you have an issue. And I would say that if you replace video games with watching sports or doing any hobby, a hobby should be a way that you enjoy your free time. Now, you don't want your hobby to get in the way of your relationships and prioritizing what is important in your life. I want to make that distinction. But it's okay if your hobby is not necessarily something that women find the most attractive, because there could be a woman out there who's into it And when I think about hobbies, I think of my dad because he has a ton of hobbies. He plays video games. He's very good at them. Very good at them. He makes sculptures, which, as I said before, he's unreal talented at. He plays guitar. He's always learning something. He's a very intelligent guy. And I just think about if you took away all these little hobbies that make him who he is, he wouldn't be my dad. He would be different. And I'm not saying that your hobbies make you who you are, but they certainly contribute. But there are things about you that make you interesting and make you unique that the people in your life probably notice and probably love about you. Like, who would my dad be if he didn't have those hobbies that I know are so uniquely him? I just think about how sad it would be if my dad didn't do any of the things he enjoyed or that brought him joy in life or that made him him because women don't find it attractive. That's lame. So if you're a guy who enjoys video games responsibly, there are some women out there who don't like it, who would consider a red flag. Maybe it's because of their own experience they've had with men who play video games or what they've seen in movies or online or social media, right? Of women talking about the horror stories of men playing video games. Maybe they just have a bad experience and that's why they have that perspective. The same way maybe you have a bad experience with a woman who watched Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I don't know. Some women won't be into it. Some women might. For me personally, I grew up watching my dad play video games. I loved watching specifically Resident Evil 4, which was my all-time favorite. BioShock, The Last of Us, Fallout. I gravitated towards the scarier games, if you couldn't tell. But it was sort of a way that we would bond and connect with each other. I had so much fun watching my dad play video games. And I realize to a lot of you that might sound stupid, but it was a part of my childhood. I loved watching. Me and my mom both enjoyed it. And then as a family, we would play things like Mario Kart, Mario Party. And it was just a big part of my childhood that I vividly remember. And I have so many fun memories tied to that. So maybe my perspective is different than a woman who doesn't have a positive experience. Maybe another woman had a dad who played video games who totally ignored his family and would spend hours and hours alone and didn't go to her dance recital because he was playing video games. I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is that we are all different. We all have reasons why we're into things versus not into things. And generally speaking, we're usually more attracted to someone who has an interest that we also have because it makes us think, oh, they're like me, which will make them more attractive to you. I've been rambling for such a long time. I do apologize for that, but I just feel like there was a lot of little things to talk about within this video. The main point that I really want you to take away from this is, as long as your hobby is not interfering with your relationships in a negative way or has a negative impact on your life, it is okay to enjoy things that the collective doesn't necessarily think is the most attractive, or things that your significant other is not necessarily into as well. As I said, I like to sit on my couch sometimes and watch a girly show by myself with my cat, and sometimes my husband likes to sit out on our patio for 2 hours shining his shoes. It just is what it is. I would rather him do that than be out at a bar being crazy. Whereas maybe another woman wouldn't feel the same way. So we're all different. That is the beauty of life. It's okay if not everyone finds your hobby interesting or attractive, because at the end of the day, it is your hobby. When you have these hobbies and interests and passions in life that bring you joy, that make you you and unique and authentic, you should want to attract people who like the real you. Not people who like this version of you that doesn't do any of the things that you actually like and only does things to try to attract people that wouldn't even like the real you. That is so silly. It is so silly to pretend to be something that you're not to attract people who don't even like the real you. That's how you end up with someone that you're not actually compatible with and build resentment long term. Wouldn't recommend that. As long as your hobby is not destructive or interfering with your goals or your values or ruining the relationships in your life, maybe because you're spending too much time doing it and putting, your family and your responsibilities on the back burner, I think it's okay. Really be honest with yourself though, because I think there are a lot of men who are addicted to video games and don't even realize it. I think a lot of women have had negative experiences with men who play video games, and that's why they get such a bad rap. If you're the guy who says, oh, I'll be in bed in a minute, just let me play one more game or finish this one, and you end up playing for hours, and then your girlfriend goes to bed by herself when she really wanted that emotional connection with you, guys, it is important to nourish your relationships before a video game. So I want to make that clear too. I think some people have a problem. I think video games can be very addictive. to make sure that you've got a handle on it, just like anything else in life. But that's all I have for this video. If you liked it or found it helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel to be in the loop for when I release new content. If you haven't already, be sure to follow me over on Instagram at Courtney Christine Ryan. I love connecting with all of you guys over on there as well. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Again, I really tried to offer some different perspectives, or maybe just looking at things from a different way than maybe you have been. I would love to hear your experience down below with your hobbies and what that has been like for your dating life. So let me know down in the comments. And I also have to say before I end the video, if you're watching this is your sign to stop gambling. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.